Welcome back, everybody.
Working on a holiday. It's May 30th. Happy Memorial Day for all you guys and girls. Hope you're out there grilling hot dogs, hamburgers. Some people shoot off fireworks Memorial Day. You're probably out on the lake. Feet are kicked up. You're relaxing.
Celebrating.
Breeding. You probably got a Mick Ultra or a White Claw or one of those, lean, friendly drinks that you got out there sporting on the boats and in the cookouts. But we welcome you today to, again, it's May 30th, 2022. Welcome aboard, everybody. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 586.
All right. Yep, it's Memorial Day.
It's Memorial Day. It's the finale of Chattanooga Season 4. Of our string.
This is Season 4,
This
right?
is, we'll whatever. We'll call it Season 4 in Chattanooga. We're both heading out in the next week. I'm heading to Kansas. Mike's heading to Wisconsin. We appreciate you for heading over to our podcast. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Your time is valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We'll cover it all. We'll do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We will do race recaps, and we'll also do some race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through, what our athletes are going through. We work with a very wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner-level athletes looking at their very first sprint or even 5K, all the way up through elite-level amateurs trying to get back to Kona. A couple more shout-outs to our people across the pond. They've been giving some great feedback in the Crushing Iron group and appreciate the shout-outs. So, yeah, we love our folks over across the pond. Mates, cheers. But that's it. We'll also hop into our Facebook group, Crushing Iron Group. You're going to be a part of that conversation. Awesome community.
Big influx.
Great people. Yeah, big influx. I think people kind of got wind of the cast in our Chat 70.3 preview and then the recap. So a lot of awesome people in there. We'll occasionally go in there, like today, and drop in and do a little Q&A, see what the vibe of the triathlon community is. Let them pepper us with questions or topics, and then just do our best to answer them and get through more than two when the list is list is 40 deep. And going back to all the athletes we work with, we will oftentimes use the topics and conversations we have with our own personal athletes and training peaks, emails, texts, phone calls, and the like to drive the topic of the day. But it's just we're very lucky. A lot of podcasts are built on interviews with other people, and I know in the very beginning, people probably wonder, what are you going to talk about? You can't. There's only so much you can talk about with triathlon. But we're very fortunate to have to work with so many athletes that are all going through different things, but some are the same. But all trying to kind of find our way in the sport. You and I have been doing this for a very long time. We have the Facebook groups. We have a lot of resources of the kind of. We kind of joke that we're the Seinfeld triathlon show about nothing. But it's kind of like horoscopes. You talk about it enough and it's all kind of applicable to our lives in some way, shape, or form, just in a different way. So I always appreciate our own athletes and then people who share their struggles and ask questions in our closed group. But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads. We do have an agenda, and it's an important one. It's to try our best to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Oh, it's interesting. As you were doing that, I was like, did he do the open yet? Or like the intro?
Yeah, changed up.
And it was kind of in the middle there. We kind of got lost. I think he did it. Yeah, so we'll just move on.
It's a season finale. I figure
were you a big horoscope guy?
Me?
Yeah.
No, never.
There was a phase when I went through that.
You were a horoscope
I was like,
guy?
man, this shit is on fire. It's like nailing me every day.
When you go back and read it in the paper.
Yeah, I was going through some tough times, and I'd
obviously
flip through to the horoscopes and be like, man, give me a nugget here. It's kind of like going to
what's your sign?
Chinese dinner. Scorpio.
I'm a Gemini.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trouble. But it's like
you're trouble. Yeah. People say the same thing about Geminis because they split personalities.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Scorpios
are very, very quiet, very loyal, but if you back them into a corner, they strike out.
Oh,
as you know.
If you say on your left, you're in trouble. Like stuff like that. If you say, hey, buddy.
But as I said, you know what they say: millionaires follow the market, billionaires follow the stars.
Is that what they say?
That's what they say
about your sign.
Not about my sign, but just in general, the astrology of the world. Like the stars kind of lead the outline the future.
Interesting.
Which we should. There's so much crazy shit in this world right now.
There's a whole lot of crazy, man. We try to be.
If we can embrace the crazy and channel it into a positive direction for ourselves, like you were talking about last time,
dude. If we could, project any kind of positivity for those of you out there that are struggling, that feel like there's no hope, that feel like you can't do anything right, take a look at us. two mediocre, average fellas who picked up a microphone 6 years ago and decided to talk to each other from afar. And here we are. And honestly, all we did was commit to doing it twice a week. And that was it. I don't know why got to thinking about that this morning about just things that, consistency and things like that. And how things just kind of happen when all you do is just to kind of commit to one small thing and things just kind of just, steamroll. I was thinking about my recovery, thinking about training, thinking about the podcast, and like all really like the best things in life that I've ever kind of, stumbled onto, or not something, but kind of really put down as just being consistent, fairly simple, have all, turned into these really wonderful things, like, recovery, obviously, great to be, not have, drank in 8.5 years. And then obviously this podcast is going on 6 and, 586 I mean, it's crazy. So it's just, listen, if Mike and I can do it, you can do it. It's just kind of one of those things. Like, as you guys know, we're not spectacular in any way. We just show up. And honestly, that's 90% of the battle is just showing up and getting it done.
Yeah. Well, I think that, you touched on it, but you said recovery, training, and everything else in the podcast. That's what I think about training a lot is, I do think a lot of athletes get sort of really caught up in a particular workout or particular weeks or something like that. But the reality is when you, I'm getting a lot of race reports, and I'm sure you are now too. Just, recaps from how people raced. And one of the things is like, I just was in the game. I stayed in it and I was consistent and I was working at it and I ended up having a PR. And it was nothing about, hey, on this particular day I pushed this many watts or whatever the case may be, but they just stay in the game. And like you said, things just kind of happen. They just materialize if you're
willing to work for them.
Yeah. What,
that was a little AA right there.
90% of life is 80% showing up, or what, I don't know, whatever that Yogi Berra quote was.
Yeah.
But seriously, No,
an athlete this morning sent me something very similar in terms of like, the difference in relying only on motivation. Troy Walton, shout out to you Ohio people. He sent me this dry race board. On the top it had it's kind of two graphs. The top one was relying on motivation, and the arc is kind of like a shark fin, right? It's like, arc kind of a circle, and then it has a straight drop down the back, and then it's a straight line across, and then again slow motivation at the top, and then drop back down again. Yeah. And that's how a lot of people do. They rely solely on making it about being highly motivated, and everything has to be an immediate, reward or there's no, why get out there for a 15-minute run or I need to be at my best, and then they drop off because they have these huge expectations. And then right below it is this graph it's called relying on consistency. And it just looks like a set of stairs, slowly but surely making your way towards the top. And it's so much things in life it's just about consistency, because, to be honest with you, for yourself, it's about just showing up and getting it done. And then the other part is and sometimes I joke with this about the podcast, is that, we can just outlast everybody because there's not many people. Yeah. A lot of people like to start a podcast, but they don't like to do all the stuff that goes with it, constantly show up and, you take a lot of criticism. You put out your podcast online for free, and people can just say whatever they want to. It's just, but all you gotta do is show up. It's kind of like we are the equivalent of the 80 to 84 age group Kona qualifier. We're just trying to outlast the rest of the competition and hopefully get a few listeners and a few extra downloads that way. But no, that's the fun of it. It's set your expectations, or just don't have any, and then appreciate the journey. And that's the thing that's kind of also why we went into our closed group today and popped in there and said, we wouldn't be on this journey if it wasn't for our listeners, and had a couple great questions in there. First one from Emily Ewan. This is a great one, because I think a lot of people obviously didn't listen to our podcast when we started it. Rightfully so. I didn't either. I still don't. But she said, "Are you nervous about going back into a long distance friendship again?" I have a few long distance friendships, and often to balance them, it becomes challenging. No. Because this is, was been here for 2 years. So we've spent more time apart than we have together, in terms of it's, like I said, I don't think people notice, but the very podcast episode number 1 through I think the first 30 or something like that, I was in Kansas and you were in Nashville. So I started it there, about 10 miles from where I'm going to live. You were in Nashville at the time. Then even when I moved back to Nashville, I mean, you lived across, you lived across the city
pond,
across the southern pond, of the Cumberland River. And, it would have taken an hour to get there anyway.
I know we never saw each other.
We didn't see each other anyway, and then I moved here and then you came. So no, I mean, it's what we know. It's what we do. And no, I have no fears at all or worries about maintaining that long distance friendship. And we're still going to talk, listen, regardless, we're going to do what 99.9% of all friendships don't do. We're going to talk for 2 hours a week.
Yeah.
Actually speak to each other for 2 hours a week, not just via text message or Snapchat or whatever they do now.
Yeah. But there's a part of me that's kind of like, well, it's nice just to kind of see each other once in a while and just say, hey, is everything cool? That kind of stuff. So that's the part that I don't want to say I'm going to miss, but I think that's a key part to everything. It's like, you see each other and you're like, yeah, everything's fine. But yeah, I mean,
are we going to need to do video?
Video chat. We might do that in the online hub.
I think we
once in a while
we may. It'd be good for us.
Personal catch-ups.
Get a little, as they call, face-to-face.
Face-to-face, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just, but yeah, like we've operated this thing kind of in a virtual way. And I think that, we're going to be fine. I mean, I think it's going to be good in some ways. I think it is going to be a little tricky occasionally, but we'll be doing our thing.
Dude, it's always been tricky.
But we've made a really interesting relationship, I think, in this, is that we give each other a lot of room as it is. And I think we've just sort of like come to this agreement that, hey, we're just going to do this, and
we are a lot more flexible now than we've ever been.
Yeah.
And I think that, so anytime you make a change or a move, it has an adjustment period, no matter what. So yeah, there will be an adjustment period, but we've done it before. So, and we still do it intermittently when like you're out of town or I'm out of town. We will still do these, in separate cities. But I do think the thing we have going for us is we've been doing it forever. And honestly, nothing's going to change except we're not going to be in the same room, but we have been more flexible than ever. I mean, there was a point in like the first year or two we did this that we had to do it Monday and Thursday. Like we were not flexible at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did one podcast with my iPhone headset in the stairwell at Disney because I was like, we got to get this done. That didn't go over well, by the way, but you had to get it done. We didn't ever cast ahead. Like, we that's something we just, hadn't really thought about, doing a couple in advance. But no, it's going to be all good. It's adjustment, like all things are, but again, nothing that we haven't done before.
Correct.
Dan Kavanaugh.
Thanks, Emily.
I feel like he was setting me up right here.
Uh-oh.
How, quote unquote, Hollywood is Mike when you guys are at races? It's a tough one for me just because, again, I'm in the same room with him and I don't want to spoil our last, IRL in real life experience. He's really not Hollywood. He's not Hollywood. The people that are Hollywood, the people that are Hollywood are his fans. They are. I mean, you should have seen him at the booth. I mean, it was paparazzi. It was straight. I was on one side having to give out free water bottles to kids just to get some people talking to me. Mike's on the left, and it was a line of at least 25 deep. Oh, it was like back in the day when Pearl Jam was coming to town. You had to go and line up outside a Ticketmaster booth that the night before to get tickets. But no, he's just a lot more likable in person. He's that guy. He's a great selfie taker. He's very photogenic, but no, I wouldn't say he's Hollywood. It's his fans. His fans are very Hollywood.
I think the thing is they're probably, I think they're a little more intimidated by you. It's like you're Bono and I'm like Larry Mullins Jr. or something. People can walk up to me.
I have no reference on what kind of analogy that is. I'm not even sure if it's a compliment or not.
I don't know if it is either. Yeah, I think it is.
There's nothing intimidating about me.
I'm a Midwesterner, man. I'm a little more outgoing, I think, sometimes.
I just cuss more than you do. I think that's kind of
cuss more.
Yeah, I'm just very matter of fact, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, you're a little quicker on the trigger with the kicking people out of the group and stuff.
Yeah, because I care about our community. It's all about culture.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I'm a little more, But you're flexible on the fuck around, as we mentioned.
Thank you. As our shirt that will be to come. It's 2 shirts coming down the pipe in the next 6 months. 1, flexible on the fuck around, and 2, mediocre as fuck. Yeah, but yeah, I'm just kind of black and white. But I'm a big hugger. I'm a hugger and a handshaker. Yeah, I'm a big I'm a big teddy bear. Jeff Mitchell. I know you're not a big fan of Track Tuesday, but is there not some value in going to a safe place to do some work on basic run mechanics and can watch and learn from other people that run better than you? Yeah, it's a broad question. I'm not against track work. I'm not against speed work. All our athletes do speed work. What I am not in favor of is putting unconditioned, ill-prepared athletes on a 400-meter circle to run at 300% capacity. At a run form they will never run again ever until they come back in 3 weeks after they get done being hurt. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm not a fan of. Is it, we do, I'm a huge fan of strides of, 15, 20, 30, 45 second, bursts to focus on running economy. Hill work is the greatest thing you can do for run form and running economy. It also doesn't smash your body into pieces. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will work on run form on grass, like soccer fields and stuff like. But the big thing about working on running a quote unquote running economy or running mechanics, and I think we referenced this maybe after St. George, was if you watch the top 3 guys that won St. George, they all run polar opposite of each other, right? They all run so different. Heel strike, midfoot strike, forefoot strike. I mean, Lionel Sanders looks like, a 7-year-old on a pogo stick on speed. That's how he runs, but he's faster than everyone else. Basically Blumenfeld, a little bit bigger. He's got a very stocky forward lean. And then Braden Curry, long, kind of lumbering, swings his arm big, long stride. They're all different, right? Like the what I'm in favor of is perfecting the run form that you have, right? And you can do that really, really, really well with, like, that was like one of the things I was doing when I ran hills yesterday. It was about focusing on good form while gaining strength. But what it does is it prevents you from being out of control and so fast that you're going to hurt yourself. And that's why I'm not against it. But that's why for 95% of athletes, it's the wrong choice, right? And I'm not a huge fan of honestly, at any point, comparing yourself to somebody else and how they run, right? Because that's just natural, right? They swim naturally. That's why I don't think everyone should have a 95 cadence on the bike, because Lance Armstrong made that very popular. You gotta have 95 cadence. No, he was also doped up to the gills, yet everyone did it. Or you see Michael Phelps and you see it takes him 9 strokes to get to the other pool. I gotta really lengthen my stroke. I gotta worry about my SWAF score. His arms are 9 feet long. Okay. Guess what? Yours aren't. Okay. You have T-Rex ride arms. They're not that long. So trying to mimic other people in all areas of life is a mistake. Mm-hmm. Like, know what you have and focus on it. But the first and foremost, like, everyone can hold great form for just a second, right? But it's about how long can you hold it for, right? And so again, I'm not against focusing on it, but I think people over dramatize. And I think it was Gordo Byrne, a very, very well known kind of old school Ironman athlete, professional, huge coaching business back in the day called Endurance Corner. He said 90% of athletes should never even run over zone 3 because for long distance races, because you're never going to run that way ever. Like, mm-hmm. You should just run zone 2 or tempo and hills and get up there. But no, again, not against it, but I think most people, if you're going to, quote unquote, work on your running economy, then you're probably honestly better off, hitting the gym or doing some hill repeats. I
couldn't agree with that more, because hills to me are the place to work on that. Because first of all, you become, like you said, your form naturally goes better up a hill if mm-hmm. you're doing, like, one of the first things I heard from what I respect as a good runner in this sport when I started was, shorten your stride going up hills a little bit and work on that turnover, because that's a safe place to do it. Like, I like to run quote unquote hill sprints, but I do it in a real choppy sort of fast way. And I think that if you can build your strength on hills, it's just so much. I love hill repeats, because then you can kind of work on your cruising down and just momentum of it, mm-hmm. but like, see, because I do believe in at least practicing working on getting a little bit of a higher cadence, because most people end up in Ironman at, like probably on that 140 or something like that, 140 strides a minute. But if you can move that up to 145, I think you're just going to be running with better form and probably a stronger runner. The thing about tracks is that you go out there and what's the first thing you want to do? You want to run like as fast as you can.
As fast as you possibly can.
It's like if I took you out to Neyland Stadium and said, hey, let's just walk down to the field. You'd be like, damn, I'm going to be like, Iggy Johnson, what's that guy's name? There's somebody, and just like burst 100 yards because you're on the field and you're on the track. And I think it just makes you kind of want to go faster.
You think you're someone you're not.
Right, exactly. You start thinking about the Olympics.
But that's why people love it, right? They're like, I can see myself crush
So you go out of yourself. That's the thing about hills. It kind of contains you, right? And then if you can kind of go up that hill and go down that hill and then maybe run a little bit on a greenway and flat and kind of work on that little quicker pickup thing. I just think that's how you just slowly become a better runner. I really do.
And here's, in terms of like comparison and stuff, like everyone sees, because I mean, again, like, we do quite a bit of speed work, it's just contained and small and appropriate, but it's always funny because going back to, the running cons, we see, so-and-so does track workouts every week. They are so fast. Like that's obviously the answer. They also ran high school cross country and track, and they were a collegiate runner. Right. So tell me, okay, no, you're not that. So it's really about just knowing who you are and what's really going to benefit you, instead of, like you said, that's the other reason I frankly just don't trust athletes enough to go on the track and not do themselves any harm, because they have a hard enough time. Like on the bike, you can burn yourself out and be smoked for 3 days. Swimming, almost no one swims hard enough to do anything, do any damage. Running, 9 out of every 10 injuries come from running, and running too hard or running wrong, or trying to pretend like you're someone else and run a different way. John Earl, it's a solid name, John Earl. I bet people call him by your John. I bet you I'm right here. People don't call you John; they call you John Earl, for sure. It's a strong name. John Earl, new beginnings and restarts, both in life and in triathlon. When to acknowledge that you need to reprioritize your goals and expectations. I believe too often life evolves, but our goals and reality in our mind remain the same. How to match our mental reality and physical abilities to our current lifestyle, accepting the now and making it the best now we can. I think we even have a podcast about this, but I tell athletes all the time that your goals are usually 6 months behind reality. You sign up for a race, and then you're holding on to this, visions of grandeur and dreams and expectations of a time and availability, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't have that kind of time, but I still have this goal. And you're like, wait a minute, but my life isn't like that anymore. And that's okay. I had a long kind of email back and forth with a guy that I coach, and I've coached him on and off for 2-3 years now. And he'll take periods of time off randomly. And but what happens is, and I respect this so much and love it, and he'll just say like, listen, I've got all this stuff going on right now. What I need is a break. Don't give up my spot. I'll be back. But I have other priorities right now that are that much higher. And I said, good for you. Like, because that takes a lot of maturity and recognition. And I haven't always been like this, but what I told him is this: God, it seems like forever. I've been racing triathlon for almost 20 years. It was my very first triathlon, and that's a long time to be in a sport. I have gone through many periods. I mean, hell, a lot of periods in the last 3 years.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, where I've never been this immersed in it either.
Yeah, exactly. Where I've been all in training, or I've been all out, or I've stepped back and just ran, but a lot of it's come with just having done it for a long period of time. I know when I don't have it, when I do, but that's why I'm still in the sport and I still love it like I do, because I know when to just put it on pause. I know when to come back. I don't force feed it into what I do, especially when, like you said, like, it is almost my 24-hour a day, hobby, job, training, lifestyle. It's like it's a lot. It's all consuming, and so but I think it takes a high level of awareness and an even higher level of acceptance to be okay with with where you are in life, because honestly, that's the most important thing in the world. Is where you are in life versus where you are in training. And it helps to have good people around you, to be like, dude, like, life isn't like that anymore. You signed up for this race when, you lived in this city and you had a remote job. Now you're moving, 8 hours away and you're getting married and you have a desk job and now you have to travel. Okay. Well, probably time to shift expectations, right? In not that you can't reach your goals, but maybe the timeline is different, but stress in life impact us in so many ways that we do. We like to hold on to where we were, and what we had. And it's an adjustment, and it takes a lot of awareness, and it takes a great support system to kindly remind you that, your life isn't the way it was when you signed up for whatever race you did a year ago, or if it got deferred 2 years ago.
Yeah. And you've been coaching longer than I have, so I'm kind of going through a lot of the things I'm sure you've gone through, which I feel like, a few years ago, you kind of stepped out a little bit, or at least when we got here, and it's just difficult sometimes to keep that level of training that we had back in the day when you're kind of responsible for so many other athletes. And I think the priority has been shifted in me in that regard. It's sort of like, I see that, and it's so much more rewarding, not so much more rewarding. I still want to be in the game, but I also, you talk about shifts in life, and it's just sort of this thing about wanting to, impart more things to others and help them in a way. And I still want to race, but I have at least a little more patience on it now, because I am, like this last weekend was very gratifying and fulfilling to watch, 20 some athletes come across the finish line and know what they're going through and all that kind of thing. And, and that's why it was kind of a weird reverse, like, blessing that I didn't end up signing up for that race and got out of it, because I was like, man, that would have been so much. And cause it's very difficult to get out of yourself when you're in race training mode,
100%.
And so that's why I'm thinking, I sit here and say I kind of want to do Wisconsin, and I really do, but it's really going to depend on how things flush out when I get up there. I can't just throw that into the mix right now, because then I'll be like, shit, now, because I'm trying to,
you don't like
just so much
stress, right? Like, I had a long text conversation last night with an athlete, and it was like, just whatever you need to do to unload stress. If you can make one simple choice to unload it, then do it. Like, it's, you don't hold on to it just because you feel like you have a responsibility to do triathlon, like that. No, reduce stress at all costs. Reduce stress, right? Because if you don't, you're going to burn out and be done anyway, and you'll never come back, right? But if you want to just, it's just if you want to do triathlons, do triathlon. If you don't, then don't. But stay active, right? Do something that can help you out. So yeah, it takes a lot of awareness. Kristen, this one's for you, Hollywood. Is Mike willing to share details of his Zen reading, title, author, so we can check those out? And any other reading recommendations? I know you both mentioned books throughout the podcast, and I try to catch them as you say them. Appreciate it. Thanks.
There's a lot of Zen books. The one that Zen Flesh, Zen Bones is the one I always come back to. It's just
Zen Flesh, Zen Bones.
Yeah, it's just like it's kind of a classic. And it has all these short, I call them parables, just little stories that are kind of nonsensical in a way, but they make you sort of step back and go, what the hell? And really, that's the thing about a lot of Zen, is that, like, it's kind of funny. Like, they try to take the edge off of life, and really bring you back into the simplicity of things. Yeah, I might start getting into that a little more. I've been doing, trying to get more of these sort of accumulations of information, or just videos I come across, or books I'm reading and stuff like that. That's sort of one of my plans as I develop the next phase of my coaching and things like that. And I want to get back to blogging, which I used to do all the time. And that's just kind of centers me when I'm writing about things. And in a way that, well, you remember, like, when I started blogging, it was just really more of a, spew of thoughts. And I like to just kind of non-structured, kind of let it rip sort of thing. And I like that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, for now, that's really the book that has me kind of hooked, and it's just sort of something I read every night, and it takes my mind away from all the bullshit in life. And it does. It makes me laugh sometimes. I'm like, what the hell did that just say? But you just kind of move on and let it sit. And then it's just sort of like we were talking about earlier with consistency. I think that the more you immerse yourself in these type of thought patterns, the more that kind of crystallizes as well. And it just sort of fills into, you know, like I was saying, you know, like the other day about my buddy who's trying to do yoga now, and he's just not, you know, and it's early on, so see how he sticks with it, but he doesn't get as upset in traffic, for example. That was the first thing he noticed about himself after doing yoga for like a month or something. So we'll see.
And for me, anything Ryan Holiday.
Yeah. Same deal though. You know?
Same deal. It's stoicism.
He's very stoic.
He is very stoic. He has a daily called the Daily Stoic.
It's not the end of the world.
It's really not. Honey Bark. I'm going to go on a limb and say it's not your first name, but if it is, it's pretty sweet. Why can I run for hours, swim thousands of yards, ride a bike half a day, but I can't get my act together in the kitchen? It should be easier than all those things, but it's the hardest thing I'm finding in triathlon. Totally disagree with you.
Get your act together in the kitchen?
In the kitchen. No, I disagree that that it should be easier. I have found, and most people find, that it is in fact harder to get your diet right. You know, because to me it's
like cleaning the counter and stuff.
To me, it's a lot. It's a lot more complicated. There's a lot more going into it with your specific needs, timing, how busy your life is. You know, it's not as straightforward as going out for a 30-minute run. You know, it's what to eat. It's how much to eat. It's when to eat it. You know, if am I trying to put on weight or gain weight? You know, if I'm trying to lose weight or maximize recovery, it's a lot. And then especially if you're married, I have to make sure what I'm eating is okay with my spouse. If I've got 4 kids, they're not going to probably want what I'm eating tonight. If it's on the healthy, you know, they're going to want some. So how do I make everyone happy and not hate me because I'm having, you know, salmon and spinach for dinner, you know, and then when they want to go out to eat them. So I disagree. I think it's insanely hard. I think it's incredibly hard to find that, you know, to find that balance. And does it take it? To me, it takes more. And this is, again, going back to like mental and emotional stress, to me, takes much more out of an athlete than physical stress. Preparing and thinking and being mindful of what you put into your body takes up a lot more mental and emotional energy than just going out for a 30-minute run, right? It's because to that, it's like you're clearing your mind, right? You're reducing stress. You get immediate feedback or an immediate, you know, satisfaction. That's not the case, especially if you're trying to like clean things up and lose weight. Like the last thing you want to do is keep jumping on the scale every day. Like I just spent, you know, 5 days tracking my macros and I hired somebody to do this and I'm up a half pound, you know. It causes so much stress, you know, for people. So no, it's a challenge, and you are 100% not alone in that. I mean, I'll be frank and upfront. Like when I started training again, I weighed myself and I was like, this isn't okay. I'd like to lose some weight. And then after about a week or two of being super consistent, I think I was down like a half pound. I was like, what the fuck? Like I should be a little more lean. Haven't weighed myself since. Because it's like you think of these random things I thought about yesterday in my run, but I was like, but I feel better already. I'm sleeping okay, pretty good some nights, not so great the others, but that's pretty standard. But I feel better in my workouts and I can tell I'm getting in better shape. So why do I care what the scale says? Right? Because to me, a lot of times the scale says, checking the scale to tell you how well you're doing with your training or in life is the same thing as going out for a run, feeling incredible, feeling efficient.
Looking at your heart rate.
Exactly. Or looking at your pace. As soon as you're done, be like, come on, you're not even done with your run. You're just kind of doing those last 3 or 4 steps up to your driveway. And you're like, oh man, that was so good, man. Whew. Looking at your watch, you're like, God, that was the worst. And you're like, what? So to me, it's the same, but no, it takes more work, and I think that's why it's harder.
Yeah. When you start triathlon, things hurt a lot. You know, it's a new, or running or whatever's new to you. Your muscles have to adapt and get used to it, and your bones have to get stronger and things like that. And I think when, you know, you start a diet, you have to really almost change your taste buds, and, you know, it's the same process. So I think that's why it's very difficult, because especially if you're training like this, because now you're, you know, burning a lot of sodium, you know, you're putting a lot of salt in, and then you got to counter it with sugar. I think a lot of that is that the taste buds. And for me, you mentioned it briefly there, but I think the absolute number one key to getting on a solid diet is getting good sleep, because you wake up, and if you're tired, that automatically means you need a little sugar or something. It's like an insulin. It's all related to insulin to me. And if you're sleeping well, like I talked about before, it's like some days I wake up and like I stagger right to the coffee maker. But if I get a good night's sleep, I sometimes forget about it for a while. So it's like telling me that my body is recovering. And then if you feel a little bit more energy in general because of a good sleep, and that's when all the repairs happen, and your body and your muscles get, so you have more control, I think, over it. And then you can kind of just maybe take a glass of water or something. That's always my other technique, is like, if you think you're hungry, just drink a water first, because a lot of times we confuse hunger with thirst, and it slows things down. But it's a tough, I've struggled with it. A lot of times I'll just, if I'm burned after a long run, I'll just be sitting around and I'll just get a pizza, but sometimes you do that. I've had good streaks where I've been on fish and Mediterranean type stuff,
eating more cans of tuna.
Yeah, and that was like solid, but it's very difficult to stay there. But I do think that so much of it's around sleep. I mean, I think that's probably one of the because we're so gadgeted out and blue lighted that I think a lot of people just have trouble sleeping. And I think that's really kind of one of the main causes of obesity in the country, is that we just aren't rested enough, and we never get there, and it just kind of keeps going and getting worse and worse and worse. And then it's chips and Snickers.
And trunk cookies.
Which I am obviously not immune to.
Hey, but I have to give you a lot of credit. We were gifted this array of cookies, very good assortment, at the expo, and it's at least half still here.
Did you look at it today?
No, I didn't look at it. Did you put another dent in it?
I dented that thing last night.
Right? You get a little move stress, huh? They are. They're just eyeballing you.
I don't know what to eat right now. I look in my cupboard. I'm this and that. And
I
really got to force myself
right now. I know.
I've been forcing myself to steam vegetables. That's my kind of.
Oh, dude, don't do that around me. It just stinks.
Oh,
I can't do it. It just stinks. Steamed vegetables stink. Especially, do you steam broccoli?
Yeah.
I could smell it from the townhouse.
Oh, you could hear it?
No, I'm kidding. I couldn't smell it.
See, here's the problem. You got to dump the water immediately.
Oh, God. It's microwaving fish or steaming broccoli at the office place. Big no-nos. Patrick Gill, will you and Mike miss seeing each other almost daily? Yeah. I mean, we're best friends. Of course we will. I mean, I think that's a pretty easy one. I think we answered that. In one of the previous ones. But yeah, I think so. Most of the time. I mean, even when we had the hub, we didn't see each other every day. Some days you'd stay up and work. Some days I'd stay home and work. But yeah, no, it's always nice to see people. But yeah, I think we covered that in the first one. Carl Gorski.
What's up, Carl?
What's up, Carl? No question. Just wanted to say thank you for all of the great podcasts and the great tri community you've both created. Thanks, man. We appreciate you.
Thank you for that.
We love you too, Carl. I hope you're doing well. I think he's up in the northeastern part up in the New England area. Andrea Kaufman. This is a complicated one, Andrea. How to take what we learned in our first Ironman race and build on that for number 2. It's a little vague. So yeah, Andrea, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. It's, you just apply it. It's really very dependent on what you learned, how, and is what you actually learned the fact, right? A lot of times, especially in Ironman race, a lot of times because it is so complicated and it is so, there's so many moving parts, nutrition, pacing, effort. We always joke about that the run is always to blame, but a lot of times it's, people don't pace appropriately on the bike, or they're not fueling correctly, or you weren't able to hold your bike power, up to a certain level. So, compared to training, so I need to bike more. Well, did you swim enough? So the first question, and that's really all I can say about it, honestly, because I don't know the specifics of what you learned, is to make sure that what you feel like you learned is the truth.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the actual, was the, your awakening was, was really based on fact and not assumption. Right. Again, going back to a lot of people blame the run, they should be blaming the bike. A lot of people blame the bike, they should be blaming the swim. And a lot of people forget, nutrition, or preparation, or, there's just it's a lot to kind of sift through. So that's really honestly the only thing I can say matter of factly, in regards to your question is just, ask yourself over and over and over and over again, you never ask enough questions, you know, and try like, well, why is this? Well, then maybe it's this, you know, but always troubleshoot it as many different ways as you can and really be objective when you do it. So you're actually coming up with the right answer and not just the one that's the easiest to come to, because that's what happens to most athletes. Oh, it's gotta be this. Well, really? What about this? Well, yeah, I guess it could be this. Ask a lot of questions to yourself and be objective. And even if because a lot of people, they go with the answer that they want, right? Not the one that's the reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a tough one, but it was basically, if after my first Ironman, how can I use what I learned there?
Yeah, how can I apply it?
How can I apply it? Yeah. Well, for one, I mean, I can only speak from my experience, and because I can think back to how that happened, is that, well, one thing you have is you got confirmation that you can do it, right? So that's a big mental hurdle off your plate. But on second thought, don't underestimate it. So that would be kind of my main advice on the top, because it's almost like, in retrospect, my second one, which turned out to be Louisville that year, and I was a little bit cocky with it. I think I didn't really train as hard, and I knew I could do it, and I started late and all that kind of thing, and I actually did pretty well until I got the run, and then I absolutely fell apart. So, but that was, you know, different circumstances for sure. But I just think that you can take that, because a lot of people, I mean, I think everybody that goes and does an Ironman for the first time has a little bit of doubt whether or not they can finish.
For sure.
And they should.
Exactly.
That should be their goal, usually, is just to finish. But you're right. I think that there's a lot of things. I think, man, depending on what you did and how well you did, I think you just got to keep working as hard, if not harder, maybe, or smarter for sure, and get to be a better swimmer and biker. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And honestly, that's a huge part of it is keep working at it, and also don't reinvent the wheel. Mm-hmm. You know, don't go from 20 hours of training and then all of a sudden think 10 hours is the answer, you know, and don't go from 10 hours thinking 20 hours is the answer. Mm-hmm. You know, it could have been, you know, and we say it's a lot, don't be a prisoner of the moment. It might've just been a bad day. You know, that's the thing, is like, you know, racing, we don't get special privileges. You know, it's not like the special where your body's like, all right, everything else off the table, today's race day, I will comply with everything you want today and work perfectly. No, it's just like every other day, you know? So don't jump to conclusions. Don't be a prisoner of the moment, but be objective and ask yourself the tough questions.
All right.
Like this one. Kevin, what, you want to do another one?
Okay.
I'll do one more.
All right.
Kevin Wolf, what makes a good coach? Does a good coach need to have a lengthy endurance sports pedigree, or could a middle of the curve age grouper do the job just as well? Thanks as always for giving such great advice for any willing ear. It was awesome getting to talk to you in chat last weekend. Excellent question. Probably not what you think. Well, that's not true. What makes a good coach is, and they told someone that came by the expo the other day, you know, that the hardest part of your job is not the training. It's not the data. It's managing people. Mm-hmm. That is, if you can't manage people, don't get into coaching. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to manage people, don't get into coaching. If you don't want to know about people's personal lives and you want to keep things very business-like, I would suggest don't get into coaching. It's different in writing someone a training plan and being invested in who you're coaching. The soft skills are what most people struggle mightily with when it comes to coaching. They think it's just about data and training and this, but it's the soft skills that wear you. That's why coaching has a very, very, very short shelf life for people. That's why so many people stopped coaching during the pandemic, because they weren't able to get the quick, you know, race job. My athletes crushed this weekend and this. I'm like, you had to deal with basically a year and a half of no racing, but managing people. And that's why so many coaches stopped and they quit and they got burnt out. It's not for everyone. It's not just about seeing people race. It's about cultivating relationships and pushing people. And you also need to be, you know, willing to learn and take risks, you know, and not just go with what you've been told, but, you know, make your own choices, you know, and you base things off science, but also base it on your own experiences, but then also have the courage to kind of just make shit up along the way. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what every coach has ever done, is you gotta make some shit up, because if we didn't, we wouldn't know what to do, right? Because you have to be willing to do that. if you have to just in my opinion, you just have to really, really want to work, not with athletes, but to really, really, really want to work with people.
Right.
Because that's what you're going to do 95% of the time. Like, it might, if I'm looking at someone's week, looking at their previous week and the previous week and looking forward, it might take me, 10, 15 minutes to make sure their week is correct. And for a lot of athletes, that's about 10% of the weekly interaction, right? You have with them and the feedback and the emails and hearing about life. It's a lot. It's a lot more mentally and emotionally exhausting than I think people would ever imagine when they think about quote unquote coaching.
Yeah. Well, I think about coaching. I think this is one of those things where we all have an impression of what coaching is. And it's something that we learned growing up, right? So like you're on the high school football team or whatever, and coaches will be there and, smacking you upside the helmet and, always there, and you're always there. A lot of pros have coaches on the deck at the pool or whatever when they're working on certain things, but it's a different thing. Like coaching triathlon for people that are older, that have families, that are trying to work this into their life just to stay active and, be healthier and things like that is a different game. Like you're saying, I think a lot of times just being available, listening, and kind of helping them clear a path to be successful and keeping them on the right train. So also, saving them a lot of time trying to figure shit out, I was telling somebody yesterday that the fact that I sort of you were coaching already, and I happened to land underneath you, meet you through a friend. And all of a sudden for my first Ironman, I had a coach. I mean, just the interaction and the questions that you answered for me at the time, probably saved me 2 or 3 years of figuring shit out, we can all figure stuff out, but why, spend 10 hours watching a bunch of videos when I can just ask a couple questions and not learn the hard way all the time.
Ask for help. Mm-hmm. And like we do, we always ask for help for each other. That's it. We're going to do a little part 1 and part 2. Keep this train a-rolling. A lot of great questions. We'll get back to those for the Thursday podcast. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you a lot. Hope you have an amazing Memorial Day weekend. Put your SPF on. Don't get sunburned. Don't get too much of a buzz, and stay safe out there. That's it. If you haven't been or want to go back, check out our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need a coach the rest of the year, or feel like you just need some answers, click on the coaches tab, figure out the coach that's working, that'll work best for you. And if you need anything from Mike, he's always available, CrushingIron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me specifically, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. I'll see you in a few. See you, dude.